I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who'd go through her husband's phone. I used to laugh at people who did that, saying it was a sign of insecurity, of weakness. But that night, something in me snapped. Maybe it was the way he smiled when his phone buzzed. That secret little smile he used to give me when we were newlyweds. Only this time it wasn't for me. I still remember the exact sound, that soft ping, and the way his thumb hovered over the screen before he turned it face down, pretending not to care. That was the first time I felt like a stranger in my own home. Our marriage had been comfortable. Too comfortable, maybe. We'd been together for 8 years, married for 5. We had routines, morning coffee together, Friday movie nights, lazy Sundays in bed. But lately, something had shifted. He started staying late at work. At first, it was meetings, then projects, and then simply I'll be home late. Don't wait up. The way he said it, so casual, so practiced, made me feel small, like a background noise in his life. I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself he was just tired, overworked. But when you love someone, you can feel it when they start to love you less. It's not a big moment. It's 1,000 tiny ones. Like when he stopped reaching for my hand during movies. When he started locking his phone. When his hugs became quick, distracted, almost apologetic. The first real red flag came one Saturday morning. He said he was going for a run. Nothing unusual. Except he came back smelling like perfume. Not mine, not anyone's I recognized. It wasn't strong, just a trace, like something that clung to him accidentally. But I knew that scent didn't belong in our home. When I asked him, he laughed. Maybe someone at the gym hugged me, he said, brushing it off. But the way he said it, without meeting my eyes, told me he'd already prepared that excuse. That was when the seed of suspicion turned into obsession. I started noticing everything. The way he'd smile at his phone, and then quickly type something before locking it. How he'd go outside to take calls, saying the signal was bad inside. The way his voice softened when he spoke to whoever was on the other end. I became a detective in my own marriage, watching his every move while pretending not to. I hated myself for it, but I couldn't stop. One evening, after he left for another late meeting, I finally gave in to the urge that had been eating at me for weeks. I took his laptop. He never logged out of his email there. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inbox, nothing suspicious. Sent messages, all work-related. Then I saw the archived folder. He never used that before. That's where I found it. An email thread with someone named L. At first, it looked innocent: jokes, funny memes, casual chat. But the tone shifted over time. Can't stop thinking about last night. Wish I could wake up next to you again. My heart dropped. I couldn't breathe. I scrolled and scrolled until I saw her full name in one of the replies. Laura. My best friend since college. The woman who stood next to me at my wedding, who caught my bouquet, who promised she'd always have my back. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. Every word burned itself into my mind. You looked so beautiful last night. I can't believe we almost got caught. She doesn't suspect anything. I wanted to scream, to throw the laptop across the room, but all I could do was sit there, frozen, reading their words over and over. My husband, my best friend, together. The betrayal was so sharp it felt physical. I could almost hear something inside me break. But I didn't confront him that night. No. I wanted proof. I needed to see it with my own eyes. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I set a trap. The next weekend, I told him I'd be visiting my sister for 2 days. He didn't even hesitate before saying, "Of course, babe. You deserve a break." I could tell he was relieved. That confirmed everything. I packed my bag, kissed him goodbye, and drove around the corner. Then I parked and waited. 2 hours later, a silver car pulled into our driveway. Laura's car. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might pass out. I watched as she stepped out, hair done, makeup perfect, wearing the same coat she wore when we had brunch last month. She used to come to my house all the time. Only now, she wasn't visiting me. I walked back quietly, each step heavier than the last. The front door was unlocked. He never expected me to come back. I heard them before I saw them. Their laughter. Her voice sang his name softly. I stood in the hallway, frozen, listening. Then I pushed the door open. They were on the couch, tangled together like something out of a nightmare. The look on their faces when they saw me, I'll never forget it. Her eyes went wide, his mouth opened, but no words came out. For a moment, none of us spoke. The only sound was the clock ticking on the wall. Then I said, quietly, "Don't stop on my account." He jumped up, trying to explain, reaching for me. "It's not what it looks like," he said, that cliché line every cheating man seems to rehearse. I laughed. Actually laughed. Really? Because it looks exactly like what it looks like. Laura started crying, babbling something about how it just happened, how she didn't mean for it to. I looked at her, the woman I trusted with every secret, who held my hand through every heartbreak before him. "You didn't mean to?" I said. "You slept with my husband in my house, Laura. You meant every second of it." He tried to touch me again, and I stepped back. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just looked at them both, really looked. Two people I loved, two people I would have done anything for, standing there like strangers, wearing the faces of people I used to know. I picked up my keys and walked out. No dramatic exit, no tears, just silence. But that wasn't the end. A week later, he showed up at my door, begging to talk. Said it was a mistake, said he'd end things with her. But here's where the twist comes in. I already knew he couldn't. Because I'd found out something else in those emails, something neither of them knew I'd seen. Laura was pregnant. And it wasn't her husband's. He didn't know that I knew. He stood there in my doorway, his eyes red and hollow, stammering about how it was a one-time thing, how he barely even remembered it, how he just needed a friend. I almost laughed in his face. A friend. That word used to mean something to me. Now it tasted bitter, poisonous. I let him talk. I wanted to hear every lie he'd rehearsed, every excuse he thought might soften me. I wanted to see him squirm under the weight of his own guilt. But guilt is a luxury for people who care. He didn't look guilty. He looked desperate. Desperate to save face. Desperate to protect himself. Desperate not to lose the life we'd built. Not because of love, but because of convenience. When he finally stopped talking, I said quietly, "She's pregnant, isn't she?" The silence that followed was deafening. His lips parted, but no words came out. That was all the confirmation I needed. I watched his expression change from shock to confusion to panic. How did you?" he started, but I cut him off. "Emails," I said simply. "You should have deleted them." He sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. For the first time, he didn't have a script. "It was a mistake," he whispered. "I didn't mean for it to happen." I looked at him and said, "You didn't mean for what to happen? The affair? The pregnancy? Or getting caught?" He didn't answer. And for the first time in 8 years, I saw him clearly. Not the man I married, not the man who promised me forever, but the man who couldn't handle being ordinary. He craved attention, validation, excitement. And when life got too comfortable, too predictable, he went looking for chaos. I thought I'd feel destroyed, but strangely, I didn't. I felt empty, like the worst had already happened, and there was nothing left to lose. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of water. "You should leave," I said. He looked up, startled. "We need to talk about this," he insisted. "No," I said. "You need to talk to her. She's the one carrying your child." He flinched like I'd slapped him. "You're not serious," he said. "You're not just going to throw us away like that." Us. The word made me laugh again. There was no us. Not anymore. He kept talking, begging, saying we could figure it out, that he'd fix everything. But how do you fix a shattered soul? How do you unhear those words, unsee those images, unfeel that betrayal? You can't. You just live with the shards. I told him I wanted a divorce. He looked at me like I'd stabbed him. "You don't mean that," he said, his voice cracking. "You're just angry." I shook my head. "No. I'm done." Then I walked into our bedroom, opened the closet, and started packing. He followed me, still pleading, saying he'd end it, saying he'd do anything. "It's too late. I said without looking at him. You already did everything. For days after that, he called, texted, sent flowers, even showed up at my office. I blocked him everywhere. But then Laura reached out. A message. Just one line. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long time before replying. I agreed to meet her. Not because I wanted closure, but because I wanted to see the face of the woman who'd taken everything from me. We met at a small cafe downtown. I got there early, sat by the window, watching people pass by, each of them living their own lives, unaware that mine had just been torn apart. When Laura walked in, she looked fragile.
Pale.
Not the confident, radiant woman I used to know. She sat down quietly, avoiding my eyes. You look good, she said softly. I didn't respond. I just stared at her until she finally spoke again. I'm sorry, she whispered. The words hung between us, useless and empty. You're sorry? I said finally. For what? For sleeping with my husband? For lying to my face for months? Or for getting caught? Tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't plan any of this, she said. We got drunk one night after you left that dinner party. It was just supposed to be one time. I didn't even know how to tell you. I leaned back, feeling something cold and sharp rise in me. And the other times? I asked. Were those accidents too? She flinched. It wasn't like that, she said weakly. It just happened. Things don't just happen, Laura, I said. You chose this. Both of you did. And now you have to live with it. She started crying then, saying she didn't even want to keep the baby, that she didn't know what to do, that she was terrified. And for a split second, one brief, insane moment, I felt pity. She looked broken. But then I remembered every lie, every time she'd smiled in my face while sleeping with my husband, every moment she'd pretended to be my friend. I stood up. You always wanted what I had, I said quietly. Now you've got it. Congratulations. I walked out without looking back. But life has a cruel sense of humor. 2 weeks later, I got a call from her husband, Daniel. He wanted to meet. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. When we met, he looked like a ghost. He already knew. She told me everything, he said. I just wanted to hear your side. We sat in silence for a while before he added. Funny thing is, I've been keeping a secret too. He told me he'd known about the affair for months. But instead of confronting them, he decided to wait, to see how far they'd go. He said he'd installed a hidden camera in their guest house, where he suspected they met. I wanted proof, he said. Then he slid a small flash drive across the table. You should see this. I didn't want to take it, but something in his eyes, cold, detached, made me do it. That night, I plugged it into my laptop. And what I saw wasn't just betrayal. It was worse. The video showed them arguing, loud, heated, raw. Laura was crying, saying she couldn't do it anymore. He was shouting, grabbing her arm, telling her she owed him. Then something happened. She shoved him, he stumbled, hit the edge of the table, and went down hard. The screen froze on his still body. My heart stopped. The next clip showed Laura on the phone, panicking, crying, saying it was an accident. But the look on her face, it wasn't guilt. It was fear. Real, bone-deep fear. I sat there for hours, replaying it over and over, until I realized what it meant. My husband was gone.
Dead.
And Laura, she hadn't told anyone. Now I had a choice. Call the police. Or let it all stay buried. The lies, the betrayal, the pain. What would you do if you were me? I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there, staring at the flickering screen, the image of his motionless body frozen in time. The clock on my wall ticked louder and louder until it felt like it was echoing inside my skull. Every sound in the house felt amplified. The wind outside, the refrigerator humming, even my own breathing. I couldn't stop replaying it, hoping maybe the next time I watched he'd move.
He'd blink. He'd breathe.
But he never did. He just stayed there, lifeless, sprawled on the floor, a shadow of the man who had once sworn to love me forever. I wanted to call the police, I really did. That's what a sane, moral person would do. But I wasn't that person anymore. Not after everything they'd done to me. I kept thinking if I call, I'll have to explain why I had that video. I'll have to tell them about the affair, the pregnancy, the betrayal. And what would that make me look like? The angry wife, with a motive. The bitter woman who wanted revenge.
No.
I wasn't ready to become a suspect in the story of my own life. So, I did nothing. I turned off the laptop, buried my face in my hands, and just sat there in the dark. I thought about him, about how he used to hold me at night, about how we used to talk about names for our future kids, about how I once believed we were indestructible. And now there was just this emptiness. I thought about Laura too. The fear in her eyes, the way her hands shook in that video. It didn't look like rage or hatred. It looked like shock. Maybe she hadn't meant to do it. Maybe it really was an accident. But then again, maybe it wasn't. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. No name, but I knew who it was.
Laura.
I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back. About what? Her reply came fast. It's about him. Please. My stomach turned. She knew. She must have realized someone else had the footage. Maybe she thought I'd seen it. Or maybe she just needed to confess. Either way, I needed to know what she'd say. We met that evening, at the same cafe as before. She looked worse this time. Pale, trembling, her eyes hollowed out from crying or lack of sleep. When she saw me, she burst into tears. I didn't mean for it to happen, she kept saying. You have to believe me. I said nothing. I just watched her unravel. He got angry, she said between sobs. He started yelling at me, saying I ruined his life, that I was trying to trap him with a baby. I tried to leave, but he grabbed me. I pushed him, and he fell. It wasn't supposed to. She broke down completely, covering her face. For a long moment, I just sat there. Then I asked quietly, "Why didn't you call the police?" She looked up, eyes red. Because I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I thought no one would believe me. You know how he was, he could charm anyone. And I thought if I said something, it would destroy both our lives. I leaned forward. You destroyed mine already, I said softly. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I know. And I'll never forgive myself. I wanted to believe her. God help me, a part of me did believe her. But there was still something in her eyes, something that didn't fit. Fear, yes. But underneath it, something else. Calculation. Where is he now? I asked finally. She hesitated. Gone, she whispered. I got rid of him. My breath caught. You what? She looked at me, her voice trembling. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't let anyone find him there. It would have ruined everything. So her voice broke. I took him to the old quarry. The one outside town. No one goes there anymore. I thought. I didn't let her finish. I stood up, feeling the blood drain from my face. You buried him? I said. She nodded, silently. You buried my husband, I whispered. My voice didn't even sound like my own. The man you slept with, lied for, betrayed me with, you killed him and buried him like garbage. She started to reach out for me, but I stepped back. Don't touch me. I left the cafe, shaking so badly I could barely get my car keys into the ignition. I drove aimlessly for hours, my mind a storm. I didn't know what to feel: grief, rage, guilt, confusion. Part of me wanted to go to the police right then. Another part whispered that maybe this was justice. He'd betrayed me, destroyed our marriage, shattered everything we'd built. And now karma had done what I never could. But the thought of him lying somewhere cold and unmarked did gnaw at me. I needed to see for myself. 2 nights later, I drove out to the quarry. It was pitch dark, the kind of darkness that swallows you whole. The gravel crunched under my tires as I parked and stepped out. The air smelled like damp earth and old rain. I didn't know exactly where to go, but something in me pulled forward, like my body already knew. I walked for what felt like forever until I saw it. A patch of disturbed soil, uneven, freshly turned. My knees went weak. I stood there for a long time, staring at the ground, waiting to feel something, Anger, sorrow, relief. But there was nothing. Just numbness. I whispered his name once, but the echo that came back sounded hollow. That's when I saw something glinting in the dirt. I knelt down and brushed it off. It was his wedding ring. The one he'd stopped wearing months ago, saying it was too tight. My breath caught in my throat as I turned it in my hand, the faint engraving inside still visible. Forever. M and J. I wanted to throw it away. Instead, I slipped it into my pocket. When I got back into my car, I saw headlights behind me. Someone else was there. My heart pounded. I couldn't see who it was. The car didn't move, just idled at a distance. Then, slowly, it turned off its lights. I didn't wait to find out who it was. I started the engine and sped off, gravel spraying behind me. That night, I couldn't stop thinking, what if it was Laura? Maybe she'd followed me. Maybe she knew I knew. Or maybe it was Daniel. He'd given me that flash drive. Maybe he'd been there too. Maybe he'd been watching everything from the start.
But why?
What did he want from me? The next day, I got another message. This time, from an unknown number again. Just one line. He deserved it. I froze. The same words appeared again, a few minutes later. Don't make the same mistake I did. Then the messages disappeared, deleted before I could even screenshot them. I didn't know what scared me more, the fact that someone knew, or the thought that maybe there was more to this story than I realized. Maybe Laura hadn't acted alone. Maybe Daniel had known more than he let on. Maybe this was all planned. That night, I dreamed I was standing at the edge of the quarry again. Only this time, there were two graves, one freshly dug. And when I looked down, I saw my name carved into the dirt. When I woke up, my phone buzzed again. A new text. No name. No number. Just 3 words. You're next, Julia. What would you do if you got that message? I stared at the message on my phone, my whole body trembling. You're next, Julia. At first, I thought it was some sick joke, maybe Laura, trying to scare me into silence. But the number had already disappeared from my call log. Completely gone. Like it had never existed. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. I sat there in the dark, listening to every creak of the house, every faint sound outside. The silence felt heavier than noise. By morning, I'd convinced myself it had to be a prank. I told myself I was just exhausted, seeing patterns where there weren't any. But when I got to work, I noticed a black SUV parked across the street. Engine running. Same car I'd seen behind me near the quarry 2 nights before. The driver's face was hidden behind tinted glass, but I felt them watching. The anxiety followed me all day. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every time someone called my name, my heart skipped. That evening, I found an envelope slipped under my apartment door. No address, no name. Just my first initial, J. Inside was a single photograph. It showed me, standing at the quarry. The timestamp in the corner was from 2 nights ago. My hand started to shake, so violently, I almost dropped it. Someone had been there. Someone had followed me. Someone knew everything. That night, I drove straight to Daniel's house. He looked surprised to see me, but not shocked. He invited me in with that same calm detachment he'd had the first time we met. You look like you've seen a ghost, he said. I held up the photo. Explain this. His expression barely changed. He just took a deep breath and said, I told you this wasn't over. What do you mean? I asked. He gestured for me to sit. Laura's lying to you, he said. Your husband isn't dead. I laughed bitterly. That's impossible. I saw the video. He shook his head. You saw what they wanted you to see. It was staged. The room went cold. What are you talking about? I whispered. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. They've been working together. Both of them. Your husband and Laura. They wanted to disappear, to start over. But they couldn't just run away.
He had debts.
She had a husband. So they faked his death. And they used you to cover their tracks. My mind spun. It sounded insane, like something out of a movie. But the more he talked, the more the puzzle pieces started to fit. The missing money from our joint account. The strange insurance policy he'd taken out 6 months earlier. The text messages that suddenly stopped the moment he died. Daniel slid something across the table, another flash drive. "Watch this," he said. "It's the raw footage."
No guts.
I took it home, my hands shaking the whole way. I didn't want to believe him. I didn't want to see more. But I needed the truth. When I played the file, I immediately saw the difference. The camera angle was wider this time. The fight between Laura and my husband looked rehearsed, like a bad play. His fall, the way he landed, the sudden fade out. All of it fell off. Then, at the very end, the camera shook and someone whispered, "We got it." Then laughter. Two voices. Hers and his. My stomach turned. He was alive. He'd faked everything. He'd let me believe he was dead while he ran away with her. I sat there in stunned silence for hours. Betrayal didn't even begin to cover it. It was a whole new level of manipulation. They hadn't just cheated on me. They'd erased me from the story entirely. I wasn't his wife anymore. I was a cover-up. The next morning, I decided to find out where they'd gone. I dug through old messages, receipts, anything that could give me a clue. One name kept coming up: Harbor View Motel, a cheap seaside place we used to stop at during road trips. I drove there that night, heart pounding with every mile. When I arrived, the woman at the front desk didn't even look up from her computer. "Two people checked in last week," she said when I showed her their photos. "A couple. Paid cash. Used different names." She paused, then added, "They left yesterday. Said they were heading north." I went back to my car, but as I reached for the door handle, I saw it, an envelope tucked under my windshield wiper. My name written in his handwriting. My throat tightened as I tore it open. Inside was a single note. "You should have left it alone, Julia. It's better this way."
No signature. No explanation. Just that.
I sat there for a long time, the letter trembling in my hands, trying to understand what kind of person could do this. Vanish, lie, manipulate everyone around him, and still think he was doing me a favor. But then something strange happened. A few days later, I got a call from an unknown number. A man's voice, low and calm. "Julia, listen carefully. He's not who you think he is. He's not even using his real name." Then the line went dead. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was something bigger.
Deeper.
My husband hadn't just run away with Laura. He'd been running from something else. And now, somehow, I was part of it. After that call, I couldn't stop shaking. "He's not who you think he is." Those words looped in my head like a haunting melody. For days, I didn't know what to do. Every time my phone rang, I froze. Every car that slowed down near my apartment made my heart jump. But the fear eventually turned into determination. I wasn't going to be a pawn in someone else's story anymore. I needed answers, real ones. I started digging. I went through every old document I could find: tax returns, bank records, even his old emails. That's when I noticed something odd. The social security number he'd written on our mortgage application wasn't the same one listed on his job records. I double-checked. 3 digits were different. At first, I thought it was a typo. But then I looked up the original number. It belonged to someone who died 20 years ago. My husband, the man I married, lived with, trusted, had been using a dead man's identity. It felt like the floor dropped out from under me. Every memory, every shared moment, suddenly looked like a lie wearing a mask of love. Who was he really? And why had he chosen me? I took everything I found to Daniel. He listened in silence, his face unreadable. When I finished, he said, "You're not the first person he's done this to." "What do you mean?" Daniel opened a folder and slid it across the table. Inside were photos, different women, different towns.
But the same man.
My husband, under different names, with different lives. "He moves from place to place," Daniel said quietly. "He finds someone who trusts easily, builds a life with them, drains them dry, emotionally, financially, and then disappears. Sometimes with the woman's friend, sometimes with her money, sometimes both." I felt sick. Everything I'd believed about my marriage, our love, our future, the man I thought I knew, shattered in one heartbeat. "And Laura?" I asked finally. "Where does she fit in?" Daniel hesitated. She was part of it. At first, she was just another mark. But then she fell for him. Or maybe she thought she did. Either way, she helped him fake his death. The two of them were supposed to vanish together. Supposed to? I asked. He nodded slowly. She called me a few days ago. She sounded terrified. Said he'd disappeared. Said she didn't know where he'd gone, or what he was planning next. Something in me shifted then. The fear was still there, but beneath it, a quiet fire began to burn, the kind that comes from knowing you've been played for too long. Then we find him, I said. For weeks, I followed a trail of half-clues and dead ends. Fake hotel names, shell companies, deleted emails. He'd covered his tracks well. But eventually I got lucky. A bank alert popped up, a withdrawal from an account I didn't even know existed, in a small coastal town 3 hours away. Harbor Point. I drove there that same night, through fog and rain, the roads stretching endlessly ahead. When I reached the town, it was silent, a handful of streetlights, the sound of waves crashing somewhere in the dark. The motel was easy to find. Room 9. The door was slightly open. Inside, it was empty, except for a single duffel bag on the bed. And next to it, a note. My name, written in his handwriting again. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. Julia, you were never supposed to get involved. You were supposed to stay safe. Everything I did was for a reason.
Don't look for me.
It's over. But it wasn't over. Because under the note was something else. A photograph. Him and Laura. Smiling. Standing on a dock, somewhere tropical. The date on the back was only a week old. That's when it hit me. This was all still a game to him. A performance. He wanted me to find this. To chase him. To keep playing the role he'd written for me. The heartbroken, desperate wife who can't let go. I didn't cry this time. I just looked around the room. At the bag, the half-empty coffee cup, the faint smell of his cologne, and realized something. He'd been here. Maybe hours ago. Maybe minutes. Maybe still nearby. I left the motel quietly, drove down to the pier, and stood there until sunrise. The ocean was calm that morning, the sky painted gold and blue. I thought about the woman I'd been before, naive, trusting, soft. And the woman I'd become, sharper, colder, stronger. When the sun finally broke over the water, I dropped his note into the sea. Watched it float for a moment, then sink. I didn't need to find him anymore. I didn't need closure from the man who'd never existed in the first place. He could keep running. He could keep lying. But he couldn't erase me. Not anymore. I went home, changed my number, deleted everything that tied me to that past. For the first time in months, I slept. No nightmares, no ghosts, just silence. A few weeks later, I got one final message. No number, no sender. Just a picture. It was the same dock from the photograph. Only this time, there was no one in it. Just an empty pier and calm water stretching into the horizon. Underneath, 2 words. Thank you. I stared at it for a long time, not sure whether it was real or just another trick. Maybe he'd finally let go. Maybe Laura had. Or maybe it was their way of saying goodbye. Their version of peace. Either way, I closed the message and never opened it again. Because the truth is, sometimes you don't get all the answers. Sometimes you just walk away stronger, wiser, and a little more broken but free. And even now, when I pass strangers on the street, I sometimes wonder, how many of them are living lies like he did? How many faces hide entire lives beneath them? How many Julius are still out there, waiting to learn the truth about the person sleeping beside them? So tell me,